Hey, and welcome back to another video in the Interactive Shorts video series focused on ways of making your class more experiential, immersive, or interactive for your students. So today I think it's a very fitting feature to focus on because of what we're all doing during COVID and doing Zoom teaching and trainings is talking about webcams. And I'm specifically looking here at a brand new webcam that I bought, and I'm going to go through some different options for webcams. But this one is particularly cool or useful for me because it allows me to really control my image, including doing zooming and some other features, even panning of my camera. I believe I can go up and down. So I looked at a ton of webcams. I kid you not, I ordered a bunch of these on Amazon. I sent many of them back because they just weren't very valuable. I actually have one in the back here that I can turn around and show you. I think it's the one there. It's the one here, and you're probably seeing it right now. The image is not nearly as good as the image that I just was showing you. And so one of the things you figure out very quickly with webcams is there's a wide range in terms of quality and also a huge range in terms of price. And we'll get into some of that today. We'll talk about the costs, we'll talk about some of the features, and we'll also discuss whether or not a webcam might be something that you want to invest more money in. I know we're almost here a year into teaching under COVID, but as we've improved our techniques and our technology over time, I think we figured out that having something like a better image when you're doing a training or a class session, a teaching session, can make a pretty big difference in terms of just the experience of the students, of the trainees taking part in the lecture or class session. I've often said that having good audio is step one in terms of creating good content, like for YouTube. So I always use a good microphone like this one, which gives me the highest possible quality audio without breaking the bank. You can get a really nice microphone for around $100. You can also pay $8,000, $9,000, $10,000 for a really nice microphone, which probably would not make a lot of sense for most people. In terms of a webcam, you can spend as little as $15 for a webcam. Many of our computers have built-in ones, and I'll show you mine here on the FaceTime camera, which is really not a great camera on my Mac. And then I'll show you, of course, the camera that I just purchased that is so far allowing me a lot of opportunities in terms of controlling features because it has this handy remote and it allows me to dial down and control brightness and exposure, which for me is pretty important when I'm creating my training videos or even running a live Zoom session for all of you in terms of one of the workshops. So let's jump in right now, talk a little more in depth about webcams, about features, and how you might think about using them in your DE Zoom class. Okay, so let's jump on now. We're going to just look at some different webcam options for you. And I'm trying to use just different camera setups now so you can get a sense of what the quality of a camera might be like if you're thinking about quality. And certainly, I think it's always a concern to think about your audio quality, so using a good microphone as we've talked about before, and then also your webcam. And one of the problems with the webcam is that in some cases, webcams are not as good as the next. And an example of that, I'm going to switch here. I'm actually using, this is the good webcam that we'll talk about. And you're seeing immediately it has a really wide angle. And one of the cool things is I can do zoom in. So like my chair with, if I have clothes or something on the chair and I don't want people to see that or any of this stuff here or my light, all I have to do with this camera is to zoom in. And I probably need to up the lights in the room a little bit. Let me just do that. Trying to sit back down here, but this is a good reminder that sometimes you really do have to adjust your lighting based on the camera you're using. It's no different than if you're shooting in nature and you have to adjust for the conditions of that shoot based on what it's like outside. So what's nice about this camera is I can do all sorts of adjustments of the image. I can also, I'll show you this in a little bit, I can dial up this menu. And what's cool about that is I can go in and actually customize all my settings. One of the things that was happening, and I'll switch to that camera now, is I was using my FaceTime camera. And to do this, just go to your video setting and anything that's plugged in or built in. So my web camera, my FaceTime camera here on my Mac is built in, so it automatically will show up in my video camera selection area on Zoom. So if I choose the FaceTime camera, check that out. That looks awesome, doesn't it? Wow, that's like the best ever. Imagine going into a meeting and having this. So what I could do is I could actually go in and adjust my overhead lights and also my spot that is shining on me now. But it's just like the worst quality. You could see if I do this, it's a little bit better, but then I get totally washed out. So one of the things I've noticed with these built-in cameras is they're good sometimes, but sometimes the color is off. And then as you can see now, I look like a ghost. This is like the worst possible image I can imagine. And it's not adjustable. I have no way of going in, at least on a Mac, and adjusting the cropping of the image. I can't adjust the exposure. If I don't want my carpet and stuff showing there, the only thing I can do is move my computer. So you're really limited often by a built-in camera, and they're very often going to give you issues with exposure. This is Mac or PC, as well as cropping. You can't adjust much of anything. So it looks really bad. And because I can't adjust anything, I'm either stuck with this, or I can go into Zoom on my video settings, and I can actually adjust some of the settings specific to video. Just want to go to my preferences, and these are the audio settings. Click on video. So I can adjust for low light. If I turn it on to auto, it actually gets better. So that is actually a lot better. So that's one thing you can do is kind of, tweak some of the settings inside of Zoom to see. Now you're noticing something now which is also interesting about our Zoom presence, if you will, or how we look. You notice this is a white background. If I bring that, look what happens to my face. The more that the white is reflecting off, it's even worse with a big page of white like this. And so that also presents a problem just sometimes in meetings, is if your face looks really white because of the fact that the computer camera is adjusting, I guess based on the white balance or exposure. I don't know what adjustment that would be. So if I go back to my preferences, and I can tweak some of these a little bit, and we could see it in real time. So we can adjust more of these here on video. Not a lot of adjustments. So again, the auto versus manual low light. So I probably want, with this camera on auto, what I recommend is once you plug your camera in and that's going to be your go-to cam, adjust your light settings. If you have a ring light set up somewhere, if you have a spot, if you have an overhead light, that's the point where you can start to adjust things. If you have other things in the background, like I do with screens and images, I can also adjust those too. So there isn't a lot here. It's the low light, and then the rest of this is just mainly about participants in a video. So as you can see, there aren't a lot of choices. I can immediately switch my camera and decide on a different one based on whatever's plugged in. So for now, I have the FaceTime. Again, I don't really like that, and that inspired me to look at some other options. Now, there are quite a few options. So one of the things I'll mention first is my iPhone is actually plugged in recording here. You could theoretically use an iPhone with a camera mount, a tripod mount, or a microphone stand mount if you have an app. And this is very specific to Android or Apple. I won't get into that. But if you did something like that, that could actually substitute for your webcam. So you wouldn't have to go and buy another webcam like I did. Now, the disadvantage of that is if you want to use your phone during a meeting and you're using that as your video webcam per se, you can't use your phone during the meeting because it's going to be on a tripod like this one. So I don't personally like that option. Now, a second option that is not a USB webcam is to get a capture card. You can get these fairly cheap, anywhere from $30 through over $100 for a really good one, like an Elgato one, which is top of the line for a lot of gamers. This is a pretty good one. I think it was around 60 or 70. It's a 4K, and I think this one is decent. It does a good job. So I can take my DSLR right now, which is plugged in here, recording this image of this angle, if you will, and then all I'd have to do is take the HDMI out from my camera. If your camera doesn't have that, you really can't use a capture card. You have to have the HDMI. It's either that large format or the small pin version, and I just have a converter cable. Really cheap to pick one up, $5 to $10 on Amazon, wherever you buy your electronics gear. And all I do is I plug this into my camera. This goes into my USB. Once I do that, the Zoom will immediately recognize that, and all I have to do is choose that from my camera. Keep in mind, anytime you plug a new camera in, I don't think you have to restart the entire Zoom program, but you might have to reselect it if it doesn't pop up on your video selection icon. So that is option 2. The first 2 options, the iPhone or the Android phone, and then the a camera capture card with the DSLR, do not involve a webcam. Everything that I'm talking about now, this is your webcam option. As I'll mention in just a little bit, we'll go into looking at some of these on Amazon and different price points. You can range anywhere from $17 through $199. I think probably even over that. There aren't as many choices as you would think in that high-end range. We're talking $70 and up. So you're very limited. In the low-end range, there are a lot of choices, and to be quite honest with you, I tested a lot of these, and they're all fairly consistent in being not amazing. So one of the first things before we get into quality to talk about is keep in mind that it's a very simple principle with any of these webcams. You're going to get typically that is it type B or type C? I think it's type B adapter, that small prong that goes into your USB. And what I have set up here actually is an extension cord. And one of the things I recommend is you might pick up some of these extension cords. Typically they're USB 3.0. They're fairly heavy gauge because there's more information that has to be carried over that line. This is a, I think, 15-foot cord. And what's cool about this is I could set up anywhere in my studio and then capture what I want to capture. And actually right now I'm going to switch to my other camera, my better one, my expensive one. And as you see here, I might have to go in and readjust my zoom. It's a good reminder. So let's try that. New camera, new adjustment. Let me click the adjust for low light off. And it's pretty much the same. So one of the things I can do is click on manual, and then I can choose the amount. And I kind of get that shadowing or vignette around my face. So I can dial that in where I like it. Theoretically, I want to be able to see my monitors and LCD thing back here, that screen. So I could make an adjustment within Zoom. And you can see I'm getting more or less of the background. It's not unlike kind of the fancy adjustments you do on your iPhone if you take pictures and use all the various filters to adjust highlights, shadows, contrast, vignette, all that kind of stuff. So I'll get it about there and call that good for now. And it's a little, I'm just seeing here, I might want to go into the manual settings. But anyway, so all of these cameras then have this kind of plug. You plug it into, if you have an extender, you'll plug that into the extender. I've mentioned that if you have a USB hub, it's off screen here. Actually, if I switch to the webcam, I can show you in real time. We'll give that a shot. So I'm switching to my USB 2.0 camera, and there it is. And you can actually see my DSLR set up there. But I'm talking about one of these hubs here. So these particular hubs are really handy if you run out of space for your USB cords from your printers, from anything that you might have, a keyboard like this that also uses USB. The problem is over time you run out. If the computer only has, in my case, 4 of these, I get a hub. Well, the problem is if you add an extension cord like the one that's on here that we looked at, and sometimes even without that extension cord, you actually do discover, and we'll bring this back center because I want you to see actually what the quality is like compared to my good one, as I call it. And these have a little lip typically, and you just put that lip right there, and there's some adjustment up and down, and there's also a little thing on the back. So we'll adjust it, and yeah, you know, that's not super bad. I don't think it's actually a terrible image. So I wouldn't say it's the worst. So I can really use this one as a nice camera that can be on the side. Like if I'm doing a music demo or something, a podcast, I can have that on any number of pieces of gear in my workspace here. And then I can switch to that. All I have to do again is go to Zoom and switch to the camera that I want. Once I do that, then you know, I'm set to go until I want to switch again. You can also do automated versions of this with keypads. I have that ability with my Stream Deck to actually go in and to actually choose via, I have to see which one I haven't used in a while. This one, it's a camera icon. Every time I click that, it'll select a different camera. And so that's kind of cool because then if I have 3 or 4 cameras set up, in my office, all I have to do is press that, and I can actually just toggle through those different angles. So it's actually really cool to be able to do that, almost like a live studio setup. So with the USB, what I was trying to say is make sure that if it doesn't power up, if you plug it into a hub and it doesn't show up here on your Zoom when you're trying to use it, you know you have to plug it directly into the computer. Or option 2 is get one of these hubs like I have here that has power. I'll talk about later when we go through Amazon about how to find a powered hub versus a non-powered. A non-powered hub will not have enough bus power to generate power to run the camera, and thus it won't show up in your menu. So it's one of those tech things you just discover. I can't tell you how much USB gear I have behind here of all different formats and trying to work that out. I mean, it's USB actually is a very tricky standard because there isn't really a standard to it, since there are so many different cords and different voltage ratings that happen when you're trying to plug in gear. So that's one thing to remember about the cord. Now, the second thing to talk about here is how to mount your cameras. Every single webcam I've seen has this. So this allows you to have a lip that sits typically on your computer, and then all you have to do is rotate that, and then this sits on the front, and this kind of holds it. It creates like that little 90-degree angle, I guess, here. Or is it a 45? And then that allows the camera to be fairly stable. All of these are super light, so you're not going to have issues with that, whether you have a laptop. This one's actually a little heavier, my expensive one that we'll talk about. Now, one consideration is if you don't want to use it on your computer, which typically has this flat surface, you have to think about mounting options. If you have something flat that you can mount, you can look around your workspace and find anything, right? There are a lot of things actually that would allow you to, I wouldn't put it on a coffee mug, but it's a pretty good design that allows most surfaces some level of mountability, if you will. If that's not the case, though, you may want to think about some options. So one thing to think about is some of these cameras have this right here, which is a mount. It's either going to be a mount for a typically, I think it's a tripod mount, but it could also have a microphone mount. If it has one or the other, it's super cheap to buy adapters for them, as I'll talk about later, that allows you to go to a tripod stand or to a microphone stand back and forth. So that is really handy. This camera has it, as does my expensive one. So they all have that mount. That's super important if you don't want to just be able to mount on your computer. If you're just mounting on your computer, your laptop, desktop, not a huge deal. You can just go with that mount. Otherwise, you would think about having a microphone stand or a tripod stand set up, and then you could put that camera anywhere. Another option for you to think about is this one didn't have that mount. So if I want to mount it on a microphone stand, there's really no way to clamp it. So I created this, and it's super easy. Just get your nice wood glue. If you need wood glue recommendations, reach out. I do a lot of instrument construction using wood glue, so this is absolutely the best, and it's not going to break the bank. So all I did was glue these two pieces of wood like this, and then I drilled a hole that would be just big enough for, I think this is for a microphone stand adapter, but all you would do, or mount, all you do is take your drill bit and look for something that is smaller than the diameter of the mount that you're going to mount on. And that way, if you get one, let's say one smaller, all you have to do then is kind of twist it, and it'll kind of create its own thread as you twist it over that mount, because the microphone stand and tripod stand both have those mounts, which are threaded. So once you do that, this is ready to mount on your stand. So imagine the stand is there, and then I take this like this. And as I've shown you in some other videos, my demonstration video, I don't have it right here, but I like to take a clip, and just right here, it could be even a binder clip, just make sure that that's solid. That way, if you jostle it, this will easily fall off if you just bump into it. With a clip on there, a small, not a paper clip, but a binder clip, that's going to hold it in place. You put your mount, you have that mounted, and then you can just move it to the desired angle. So actually having the ability to use a mount on a tripod camera stand and or a microphone stand is just really smart, because they work so well. The adjustability, particularly the microphone boom stand, is almost infinite. You could put it in any angle that you want it to be in. So kind of just a tip there. Now, I was showing you this camera here. We can, again, compare some of the quality. So let's go back to that. It's just labeled as USB 2.0 camera. Okay, so that's not super terrible. I'm going to actually unplug it, and let's plug in this other camera to compare it. If I could find the end of the plug here, sorry. Get my webcam back on. So I found the cord. Oh, and by the way, so this is one of those hubs that is unpowered, this particular hub. So as I was saying, if you have something like this, and you plug in your webcam and it doesn't work, it means you need power, more power. So either plug directly into your computer or laptop through the built-in USB ports, or buy one of these that has a built-in power adapter. If it doesn't have an adapter, it's not really going to have enough juice, not just to run cameras, but other equipment as well, even like small MIDI keyboards like this one. So it's something to keep in mind. We're going to then just take this camera and we'll plug it in, and then we'll go ahead and get it situated. So again, it's really plug and play. You don't need any drivers on webcams. And years ago, you know, we kind of lived in the age of excessive drivers for a lot of our gear, and it was always annoying that you had to download a printer driver. Now most things are plug and play, which I don't know about you, but I love that it's gotten easier. I think that's going to be right. So again, we're comparing the camera here, this expensive webcam, the Avaya, and then this other cheaper one. So let's go ahead and switch cameras. This time it's called Webcam, and wow, that looks awesome, doesn't it? That's like the best. I'm kidding. It's like shockingly. This might actually be, in the history of digital media, the worst ever image. Although, if I was doing a psychedelic song, I'm just thinking here, like I could do some definite interesting stuff with this. I may have to consider that. But watch this. If I kind of do this, it gets a little bit better, but man, that color is harsh. So let's go in again. I'll go back to my settings on Zoom. Go to preferences, they're called, and I will adjust the video settings. Let's take that low light off. That's actually a lot better. Okay, it's still pretty bad. Again, I can't crop it, so the only way to crop it is I have to physically rotate the camera, because I don't want, you know, if I have my my spot in there, that's going to really screw up my image, right? It's just like trying to shoot a video of the sun or something when you have really sunny conditions. So I can do that. It's still pretty bad. So let's go back to our low light setting, and we'll do manual this time, and we'll see if we can get it anywhere near. So pretty much whether I do auto, turn it on or off, touch-up appearance has no effect. It just looks really bad, right? So the only way to get around this and fix it is to not use this camera, or to really think about adjusting my light in such a way. Maybe I bring down my light in my office so much that it's going to get a bit of a better image. Let's try that real quick. Okay, so I adjusted it. And by the way, you know, going through this in real time with you, you know, makes for a much longer video, but this is really the kind of problem solving that's normal with doing anything with audio and video and technology. The stuff doesn't come naturally to any of us. I know there's a perception that it does, but it's a lot of problem solving and prototyping and testing one thing and testing another until it gets better. So right now, how this looks, I'm pretty much thinking like this camera is complete garbage. You know, maybe I could set it up somewhere. I'm wondering, like, if I had it here, is it going to do anything for me if I wanted? It just looks awful regardless of where I put it. And the interesting thing is, it's hard for you to see this. Actually, you can see it with this camera. So there isn't a lot of that ambient purple light or the pink light. And you see the screens. And notice that on the screen, on this camera, that is orange. Yet the camera is picking up purple and pink. So there's really no explanation for that. I do have some spots there, but nothing is highlighted here. So it's almost adding this like pink glow to this equipment here, and it's showing everything on my screens as not orange or black, but pink and purple and very bright white light. So yeah, that camera is kind of toast, really. And so I don't recall when I go through these on Amazon which one is which, but again, you can experiment. What I do is I return the ones that I don't like. And unfortunately, this one's past the return date, and it's probably not going to be that useful for me. I maybe will try to use it in some context, but it's just not really great at all. So let's go to the one that I think is my best one, and that's the Avaya. And this one, again, is expensive. Now, I'm dark again, so I'm going to go back and adjust my lights in my office. Okay, so what we're doing there is we're just bringing up the lights. And again, this is like the fine tuning of your webcam. So you do that. If it's still not right, what I can go in with this camera and use is a built-in remote, which is really cool, this external remote. So I can click on my menu, and then I would click on, I believe it's under Image, and select that. And then if I want the luminous to go up to make it a little brighter, I just do that. And you see at some point you're going to get like pixelization aliasing at its maximum at 14. So it looks pretty bad there, but I just want to go in and maybe get it right. I can adjust the sharpness. I can flip the horizontal and the vertical if I wanted to do that. Which, you know, if I was doing some sort of special effect video. The style is also kind of cool. I can choose normal, default, or clarity, I guess, or bright. So that's kind of cool as well. There's just different settings. The face one is kind of good, actually, because it kind of brings out your face, although it adds a little bit if you're seeing pixelization here, kind of from that brightness. I'll go back to default. And then, again, I can adjust any of these as I like. Maybe I'll bring the luminance up a little bit. And then I can go back. And I can click on color. And so the white mode, white balance mode is really, again, something you can't do on most cameras. I could adjust for indoor or outdoor, which is kind of cool. And I think it was on manual before. And then I can also adjust that. You can adjust the hue. So this is really sophisticated in terms of just, and as I'm adjusting the hue, check out, and that's why I have these monitors set up for you. We're checking color. Again, the color back here, I have to look, is it's a blue background with orange. So as I adjust the hue, you see pretty dramatic changes happen in terms of just the color of my screens. And this little pixel screen here is reading pink even though it's orange. So that's something else you can do. When I get it to where I think it should be in terms of the natural color, what I'm looking for, I can easily set that, and then I don't have to worry about that anymore. So there's a lot more settings in here. I won't show all these to you, but I really like that. I also like the fact that you can customize, and I also like the fact that I can do a zoom of any sort if I want to zoom in. I can also pan and tilt. So I can go back home, which is default, and then I don't want to show my chair or my light, so I start to adjust it like this, and I get it to where I want. I personally don't always like a carpet showing, but it's probably not a huge deal to have it showing, so it's kind of your preference. And whenever I get that where I want it to be, then that can be my setting. So again, this camera is super high-end. It's one that has a built-in HDMI. So this allows me to also use it with a monitor. I can do the HDMI out. It has the USB 3.0 out. And it's just the best camera I've found. Now again, at $199, it is not cheap, but I figure over a 12-month period, you know, I'm paying, I don't know what, 20 bucks a month or something like that, a little under that. So I figure like it will pay for itself because I'm using it so often with my professional work at the college and outside. And so I feel like it's definitely worth the price. So what we'll do now is I've shown you just some of the dynamics of how these cameras work, what they look like, how you might use them in your work setting with your computer doing Zoom. I'm going to jump into the web now, and I'm just going to show you the pricing, what to look for, how to do some of the searches, and so forth. So hopefully overall this will be useful for you as you sit down and try to make a decision about upgrading your webcam if that applies to you. So let's jump on the web now. Okay, so I think it's worth just jumping on right now and looking at some webcams on Amazon. If Amazon is not your favorite company to buy from, you know, people have their own preferences and so forth. You can also look at B&H Photo is a really good one. And to be quite honest, any of your big box stores, including those right now that are doing curbside pickup, will also have webcams. You can really find them in so many different online retailers and locally if you're able to do something like curbside pickup. The price range goes from, as you might see here, anywhere from like 15 bucks all the way up to $200. And there's a lot of certainly difference in terms of what you get for your money. Now, in some ways, unlike microphones or electronic music gear or effects units, things of that nature, even cameras, DSLRs and video cameras, it's a little harder for me to give you tips on which is the best one. There's a lot of difference in terms of the camera features. When I get into the one that I purchased, which is pretty premium at $199, it allows me to do more than any of these other cameras combined. You can also think about anything that has a built-in ring light. I know quite a few faculty have purchased items like these, or they have their own light, a ring light, that is maybe close to the camera, and then that gives them nice kind of glowy lighting for their Zoom sessions. So there's a ton of variation, and again, going through some of the cameras today, you got a chance to see the differences between my FaceTime camera on my computer, a couple versions of these webcams, and then my really high-end one. So there isn't really a go-to camera. One of the things you can do with Amazon is you can purchase one and return it later if it doesn't meet your needs. And I did that actually a couple of times. And so this is one of the ones I purchased. And again, you had a chance to see what that looked like. And that at the time, it may have been a little higher. I noticed a lot of fluctuation. This is $16.99. Some of these claim to be 1080p, and I don't know really, I don't have a way to test that in terms of the resolution, but when you see the quality, if you're getting issues with pixelation, aliasing of imaging, where you see a lot of chunkiness, if you see color issues, which happened with one of these cameras to me, basically every time I used it, that's another telltale sign. If you first plug in the camera and it's super dark and you have pretty good light, backlighting in your office, in your space that you're zooming from, in terms of a desk lamp, overhead lamp, or even one of those ring lamps, you might also know then that something is up. So for $16.99, I think, like, you can get by with this. Are you going to get something great? Probably not. And that's kind of like the old saying, you get what you pay for a little bit with these. This is the other one I purchased. And this one is listed as $49.99. I want to say I got that. There's so much fluctuation. Right now there's a $10 off. I want to say I actually got it for maybe like $30 or $39.99. It wasn't this much. And again, I've shown you kind of the differences and what that looks like in terms of the quality. So you can also look at the price fluctuations, and I think sometimes Amazon will tell you when a particular item is really low. If it's at the lowest, that could be a tip to buy it or whatever. So again, for $50, I think you probably expect something pretty good. It claims to be 4K. I don't know if that's true or not. Other features to look at could be covers for the lens. It could be whether this has a thread, say, for a microphone stand or a camera adapter, as I've talked about in my demonstrations video, which is maybe worth looking at if you want to get into how to mount these cameras. I would refer to my demonstrations interactive video that I created for you recently. And then this is another one I purchased and returned, and actually quite a few of these I bought multiples of them and then returned them. I just found I didn't need as many as I thought. I was going to be doing a little more live streaming with OBS software and discovered that it wasn't quite necessary for me. Again, I mentioned throughout these videos on webcams and different camera applications for your Zoom classes that it's probably sufficient enough to use the camera switching feature located on your video tab. As long as you plug in one of these cameras via the USB cable, you could again have an issue with USB ports. So please be aware of that. Sometimes the power consumption of one of these cameras might be too high for using a port. So you can really start to eat away at your ports. One way you can get around that is by a USB, I should say a hub. If you type in USB hub, if you have issues and you plug a camera in to your USB hub and you're not getting performance, is not recognizing the camera, you don't want to buy one of these. This is all bus powered through your USB. You want to buy one of these, which is typically going to run you 2 to 3 times more. And the reason for that is that's going to give you enough power, and therefore typically that should work for most of these cases. Anything that's bus powered like this one, you're probably going to run into issues. These are actually really nice as well too, that you can get sometimes for your desktop. I have one of those. So if you get anything like a basic, Amazon Basic, and they don't have the power adapter, you might run into issues trying to run multiple USB cameras on your computer, particularly if you start running out of ports. If you plug it directly into the port, you're going to be fine because that's getting the direct juice of your computer, whereas the minute you plug that hub in, you're kind of getting into, what do they call that? A parallel versus series circuit in electronics, but you're starting to lose some of that power, and then the consumption of the camera is too great for the hub. So something to think about there. This one, so I purchased this one. I thought this sounds pretty good. It looked like it had, a zoom button, and it looked like it had really good quality. $139, a little more premium. And I got it and I thought it was really not good at all. So that one was a disappointment. I couldn't get the zoom to work. And at this point I was going through like 4 or 5 different cameras, super frustrated. I'm like, what am I going to do? So then I was just like, I'm just going to pay. Got to pay to play, so to speak. So I got this one and I absolutely love it. It's the Avaya HC020 web camera 4K video capability. This thing is a monster in terms of what it does, and I showed you a little bit in the demo video. All the zooming that you can do. It has a built-in remote that comes with the camera. It has the port here to allow me to thread it into a microphone stand or camera stand, wherever I want to put it. It also has this back port here, which is an HDMI port. So the cool thing about this is you can run this using your computer. You can run it using the USB cable plugged into a hub to power the thing, and then with it not even connected to your computer, totally independent from your computer, plug in your HDMI cable and this thing is running into your monitors. So I actually use it for two different purposes. Now again, $199 I think is pretty premium. That's about the most you're going to pay for a camera. So that is just something to think about. I think it's totally worth it because I want to be able to zoom. I want to be able to adjust my resolution, because I just get frustrated using a web camera that is so primitive that it doesn't allow me to do a lot of those things. So it's totally up to you. You know, one of the recommendations I have is that even though this will not be covered by the college purchasing some of this tech, I try to just give it to my tax preparer every year for business write-offs, kind of doing my own business on on the side, and you could also talk to your tax people about how that connects in with educational deductions. Sometimes you have to hit a lot in order to be able to get there, so it may not work. But regardless, I feel like over a 12-month period, it's paying for itself just in terms of the increased quality, the enjoyment that I get from it, and probably the folks who are watching my videos and doing Zooms with me. So I think it's totally worth it. It's your call in terms of how much you want to spend, but there's a range. So again, what I recommend is go back to Amazon, type in webcam, hit return. You can even choose right there, the price range that you want to pick and look at. And as I said, most of these offer free returns. Most of these, if you have Prime, will be delivered to you now. It seems like Prime is back to normal. And if you don't like it, you can always do that return and try something else. And typically, if you do that return, you could say, the resolution is not good or something like that, and click that as the under the defective or whatever, and you can kind of do an explanation. It works, I think, in different ways, but typically then you get a free shipping label. I've heard some of the Logitech are pretty good as well. I haven't tried any of them, but they're more premium, $100 to $200 in some cases, and so you could also look at the Logitech. But if you're like me and you really hate your webcam that's built into your computer, one, I think, great option then is to go and look for some options on Amazon, on B&H, on Target, wherever it is that you shop, and hopefully try some out and see if they work well for your setup in terms of your Zoom classes. Okay, so that is it today, focusing here in our interactive shorts video series on webcams. A lot of choices for you to think about in terms of price, features, and the range of options. Hopefully, if you get a webcam, you get a good one. With Amazon, you could always, if it says free returns, send it back, try another one out, and hopefully get one that meets all of your needs in terms of teaching your Zoom class. As always, if you have other questions about webcams, how to use them, features and options, because I've interacted or used a lot of them, purchased and returned a lot of them, I could give you my own tips, and hopefully you can come to a good decision about purchasing a webcam. So thanks for listening, and I'll be back with additional videos in this interactive shorts video series.